Praise God, bro.
Hey, what's going on, sports fans? My name is TJAY Jones, and welcome to another edition of the Gumbo Pot Sports Podcast, where we talk about some of the hottest topics in all of sports. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Much love to you. I ask that you hit the subscribe button to subscribe to the Gumbo Pot Sports Podcast channel. Once again, we are a podcast that talks about some of the hottest topics in all of the NFL and other sports. So on this edition, we're going to be talking about the divisional round of the playoffs, and we're also going to be talking about some head coaching jobs that are in jeopardy, and one head coaching job that we thought was in jeopardy, but it turns out that it's not. But let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk a little bit about some of the head coaching jobs that are being filled, trying to make sure that they get the right coach in place for their organization to help them to be able to navigate through these uncharted waters. Of course, we got to start with, in my opinion, the greatest coach of all time, Bill Belichick. He is getting his second interview with the Atlanta Falcons. He met with the Falcons last week, and, I think it went well. You have to assume it went well because Arthur Blank actually flew Bill Belichick to Atlanta again for him to meet with him to be able to discuss it. And you have to believe that the Atlanta Falcons are really trying to go after Bill Belichick. And I know what some people are saying. Bill Belichick the last few years hasn't been good. He hasn't been the same coach since Tom Brady left. And, some people feel like, Bill Belichick was riding the coattails of Tom Brady. Look, I understand that Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that was impressive. Taking a snake-bitten franchise, and making them relevant. They had some down years, and Tom Brady did a really good job. And also, they drafted well. Tom Brady's influence brought some key players in order to help them win that Super Bowl. But that's not that shouldn't be an indictment on Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is still a great coach. And Atlanta Falcons, they are trying to find answers. This is a very talented Atlanta Falcon team with a lot of young players. A lot of people feel that they are just a quarterback away from reaching their full potential. And maybe they are a coach away from reaching some real true potential as well with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is 71 years old. He's a little bit older, and you have to ask yourself, what type of coach can he be for a very young football team? A lot of NFL teams are starting to go towards younger coaches that are like in their mid to late 30s, coaches that are relatable to some of these players. And you're also starting to see a wave of former players getting head coaching opportunities, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But I just think that the Atlanta Falcons, they need a little bit of a shot in the arm. They need a little bit of discipline. They need a little bit more structure, and Bill Belichick will provide that. And it seems like Bill Belichick is up to the challenge. I think that once you're in a place for 10, 15 years, you become a little bit complacent. I mean, you know where everything is. You got the same parking spot. You got the same office. You've been walking past the same people. And, you can get a little bit complacent. And, as time goes on, you're looking for new challenges. You're trying to find ways to improve or make yourself better. And I think that this would actually help Bill Belichick because this is an opportunity for him to build another franchise and maybe turn them into a credible organization once again. But Bill Belichick going to Atlanta, it would be huge for the Falcons if they were to hire him. As a Saints fan, I definitely wouldn't want that personally. But all in all, I can respect the hustle of the Atlanta Falcons trying to do what's best for their organization in order for them to get better. And also, there was some news, of course, according to sources as of right now, the Las Vegas Raiders have decided to hire interim coach Antonio Pierce on a full-time basis. Now, we know that Antonio Pierce took over as the interim coach when Josh McDaniel was fired earlier in the season, and the Raiders went 5-4. Now, you'll probably look at that record and you'll say, well, they went 5-4. That's not that impressive, but they needed something, right? You look at the Raiders and the way that they were going under Josh McDaniels, it seems like the team wasn't really buying into what he was actually selling. And, this is another, speaking of which, Bill Belichick disciple. This is one of those guys who follow Bill Belichick. Josh McDaniel was a head coach before with the Denver Broncos, and, it didn't pan out. He ended up going back to the Patriots, winning another Super Bowl with them, and he wanted to run the Raiders like they were the Patriots. And I don't feel like you have a bunch of guys that were trying to buy into that Patriot way. You got a few rebels out there. You got some guys that are free thinkers, and not to say that the guys on the Patriot team aren't free thinkers, but, it just seemed like they're more like worker ants out there because they're so used to that system. And you got outspoken guys like Max Crosby out there. You got guys like Josh Jacobs. Like, you got vocal leadership inside of that locker room. And some of the things that you may say may rub some guys the wrong way. And I just feel like Josh McDaniel did that. But you got to give credit to Antonio Pierce for kind of reeling everybody back in and keeping guys focused. I think the game that really put him over as the head coach had to be the game where it was the demise of Chargers head coach Brandon Staley. We all know that Thursday night game where the Raiders just slapped them boys around, putting up 60 points on them, and they had 40 points at halftime, and the writing was officially on the wall. And also another game that kind of put him out there was the game against the Kansas City Chiefs, where the Raiders actually knocked off the Chiefs, and they did it in an impressive fashion as well. So when you combine those two things, and you also need a shot in the arm for that organization, you had to go with Antonio Pierce. The guys love him. We know Max Crosby was very outspoken about him being the head coach, and even threatened to, maybe go somewhere else or wanted to be traded if they were not going to hire Antonio Pierce. So that tells you the type of respect that that organization has for a guy like Antonio Pierce. Me personally, I think that this is a good move. I think that this is a step in the right direction for the Raiders. Will it pan out? Only time will tell, but at least they're trying something different. At least they're trying to not dig into the crates. The coach a couple years ago with John Gruden coming back to the Raiders again for a second time. Then you had Josh McDaniels, another guy who failed as a head coach. Not to say John Gruden did, but I'm just saying, you see so many other coaches getting second opportunities and they don't take advantage of them. But going in a different direction, going with the wave of the NFL and seeing like where it's going as far as hiring former players, I like the move. And I think that Antonio Pierce will do a good job. So congratulations to Antonio Pierce getting the head coaching job on a full-time basis. Next, we got to talk a little bit about some coaches that, wet the bed. I got to call it for what it is. They wet the bed in the postseason, and now their job seemed like it was in jeopardy. One coach in particular, who I'm going to talk about first, we thought that his job may be in jeopardy, but they decided to bring him back. Mike McCarthy, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, we know the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Green Bay Packers in a wild card round. The Dallas Cowboys won the NFC East. They went 12. They went 12-5. They went into the playoffs. They had a home playoff game. They were red hot at home. They put up almost 40 points at the crib. And everybody just thought that the Dallas Cowboys would find some level of prosperity in this postseason. But, of course, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The Dallas Cowboys get bounced out at home in front of their crowd and get embarrassed by a number 7 seed Green Bay Packer team that basically just kind of moonwalked their way into the playoffs. Some things kind of happened their way. The stars aligned a little bit, and they got on a little bit of a run down the stretch. So they go into AT&T Stadium, and they just basically just dissect the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they destroyed them. I know what the score looks like, but that was not an indication of what that game looked like. If you were not watching it. I mean, they got destroyed by the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love did anything he wanted to do. I mean, guys were like wide open. It just seemed like one coach was qualified to coach, and on the other side, it just seemed like it was just some guys that were out there coaching for the first time. I mean, a true masterclass by head coach Matt LaFleur. And the Dallas Cowboys find themselves going into the offseason yet again, scratching their heads, thinking that they had all the talent in the world to be able to get over this hump. And unfortunately, they can't do it. And you got to start asking questions. You got to start looking at common denominators here. You got to start looking at Mike McCarthy as a head coach. You got to start looking at Dak Prescott as your quarterback. I mean, Dak Prescott has had several coaches, and it just seems like nothing seems to be working for him. And no matter who you put in that place, it always just seems like, he falls flat. I don't know if he just uptight, maybe going into the postseason, the pressure of being a Dallas Cowboy quarterback kind of gets to him and he just reverts back to his old ways, because he did not play like that the entire season. As a matter of fact, Dak Prescott was up for a league MVP. That's how great he was playing this season. And then you go into the playoffs and just sputter. It's unbelievable the way that this team just collapsed at home, a place that they won several consecutive games. But with that, you have to ask yourself, do you have the right head coach in place as well? I mean, fair or unfair? Mike McCarthy has won a lot of regular season games for the Dallas Cowboys. He's won multiple division titles for the Dallas Cowboys. He has them going in the right direction. And if this was other franchises, I don't think anybody would be upset by him. I really don't. I think that they would look at it like we're trending in the right direction. But we all know when it comes to some of these high-profile teams, the New England Patriots, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Steelers, and the Cowboys, we know that there is a different expectation. Their fans expect different. It's not what you've done for me, is what have you done for me lately. And what Mike McCarthy has done is win a lot of games and just sputter down the stretch. So what do? I really thought that the Dallas Cowboys were going to move on from him. I really did. But Jerry Jones comes out and backs Mike McCarthy again, says that he's going to retain him. And a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans seem to be upset by this. They feel like maybe they need to go in a different direction. But look, all I'm saying is when you had Jason Garrett as your coach, the wins were few and far in between. There was win one, lose one. You were the epitome of mediocrity. And Mike McCarthy comes in. He kind of has the team structured. You just have to find ways to get over the hump. You have to find ways to figure out how you can maximize this potential of all these talented young players combined with seasoned veterans that you have. I don't see anything too much wrong with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you got elite pass rushing ability. You got the ability to stop the run. You got ability to be able to get turnovers. You got talented secondary players out there. And offensively, you're one of the best offenses in the league. To me, I don't feel like this is one of those situations where you need to reinvent the wheel. I just think that maybe you need to tweak a few things. Maybe, try to separate yourself a little bit. Also, try to simplify some of the things. And I don't think that it takes like huge changes. Like, I don't think that. Like, you don't win that many games having to change a bunch of stuff. Like, you don't need to change a bunch of stuff. You just need to tweak it a little bit. Maybe you need to look at some of your coaching staff. Maybe you need to add a little bit of more of a power runner. I like Tony Pollard a lot. I like Rico Dotto. I think they are two very talented running backs, but I think that they are missing a guy like Ezekiel Elliott, a guy that can run up the middle, maybe catch the ball out of the backfield, make some guys miss. So I would say be on the lookout for the Dallas Cowboys to possibly draft a sledgehammer-type running back, or maybe even make a trade with a team for the services of their running back. So I think if you do that, it'll probably alleviate some of the pressure off of Dak to have to go out there and throw the ball 60 times, even though he kind of put his team in a hole turning the ball over. But I think that he needs to be accompanied by a solid running back. I think that his success comes with a solid running game. So hopefully the Dallas Cowboys may be looking that direction, but I really honestly don't feel like they need to make too many drastic changes. And also the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Sirianni, the head coach, they got bounced out by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, got absolutely embarrassed, 32-9 in Raymond James Stadium in the wild card round. We know that the Philadelphia Eagles lost, 7 consecutive games or something like that, like just something absolutely insane. They lost to the Arizona Cardinals. They got embarrassed by the New York Giants. They got embarrassed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is a team that started 10-1. This is a team that started 10-1. And then you find yourself losing, 6 of your last 7? Yeah, I think that's what it was. They lost 6 of their last 7 games. That is insane. That is one of the most epic collapses I think I ever seen in the National Football League. And when your team starts to look like that, you have no choice but to look at the head coach. And we all seen that shot of Jeff Lurie, the chairman and owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Harry Roseman in the luxury suite of that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you had Lurie out there. He basically was just scowling, upset, man. You can actually see the flames popping off his head because this team started with so much promise at the beginning of the season. I mean, 10-1. That's unbelievable. And then, you just collapse like that. You got to start looking at the coach. You got to start looking at Sirianni. And you have to look at his coaching staff. I think that it starts with this. I think it starts with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, so we heard the reports about him, not really ingratiating himself within the Philadelphia Eagles culture, kind of rubbing some of his teammates the wrong way. Look, I don't know what it is, man. It just seems like the Philadelphia Eagles quarterbacks always seem to be rubbing their teammates the wrong way. I mean, I don't know if that's actually happening or if it's just lazy journalism. I just don't know at this point because it always seems like they have quarterback issues and the quarterback is not, helping his cause because he seems like he's distant from the team. Always seems that way. The only quarterback that didn't happen to was Nick Foles. I mean, I heard it with Donovan McNabb. I mean, I've heard it, with Carson Wentz. And now we're talking about Jalen Hurts. But look, Jalen Hurts, he has that calm demeanor. And I just feel like this. I don't think that Jalen Hurts has changed himself. I think that Jalen Hurts has always been this way. But everything just kind of gets amplified when things are going wrong. And you have the media and you have fans trying to figure out what happened to the prosperity, what happened to what we were actually doing, what happened to the things that we were doing that were working, what's going on with that. So I think that you have to look at the fact that Jalen Hurts does not have his quarterback whisperer in Shane Steichen, as his coordinator. We know that Shane Steichen is with the Indianapolis Colts now. And when these coordinators move on, you start to see a little bit of a drop in their play. I know that we look at these players as being larger than life, but you also need somebody to kind of reel them in, help them see the field, help them be able to break things down and see certain things. We see that with Patrick Mahomes. You can talk about Eric Bieniemy all day, all night. Did he call the plays? Was it Andy more so than him? But you have to admit that Patrick Mahomes looks different with Matt Nagy as his offensive coordinator than he did when Eric Bieniemy was his offensive coordinator. I mean, we seen this with Matt Ryan with the Atlanta Falcons when Kyle Shanahan was his offensive coordinator. Matt Ryan was the league MVP. Kyle Shanahan gets hired by the San Francisco 49ers, and then Matt Ryan just starts to be on a decline. So these coordinators matter. And I just think that we need to understand that. So when players start to kind of fall off a little bit, you have to start looking at the coordinators and what they actually lost and how those coordinators actually put them in positions to succeed. I think that it starts with that. And unfortunately, it might have to cost Brian Johnson, the now Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator, his job. Because I don't feel like the chemistry between him and Jalen Hurts is working. And I guess when you put a very hefty price tag on a quarterback. You expect for him to be the is-all and be-all of your team. You want that quarterback to be able to carry the team. But to me, I just feel like some of the things that made Jalen Hurts special back in 2022, the Eagles weren't doing in 2023. And then also that defense. I mean, Matt Patricia, like what in the heck was the Philadelphia Eagles thinking by hiring Matt Patricia? Like this guy continues to get opportunities and he does absolutely nothing with them. I mean, the Eagles cannot tackle. I'm still looking for the Eagles to tackle. And the game they played against Tampa was last week. Like, it was terrible out there. Missed tackle after missed tackle. They went, and I'm talking Tampa, they went over 100 yards after contact. That is insane. That means that your tackling is just absolutely hot garbage. But this is a double-edged sword. This is one of those situations where you have to ask yourself, do you have too many football mercenaries on your football team? And by that, I mean, you're trying to make this team the most sexiest team in the league, right? So you start to go into free agency, hiring and top-notch coaches. That's cool. You want to have the best coaches, but then you start maximizing the checkbook by going out here getting these football mercenaries like Darius Slay and all these other guys, that come on free agency. It just seems like they just pick up everybody. They pick up Shaq Leonard in the middle of the season. And I just feel like you keep on bringing different dynamics inside of your locker room, guys who already are paid and don't really have too much of a dog in the fight. They can be outspoken because they done got their big deals. I feel like maybe that has something to do with it. When you start hearing about these stories about the quarterback not being embedded in a culture, you have to ask yourself, like, is this an ego trip thing, right? Right? You got a multi-million-dollar player right here, and, he can come in and say what he wants, does what he wants. You have to ask yourself, like, does that play a huge role? Maybe you need to start, drafting these guys like you have with Jordan Davis or, and Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter. Get your players, right? Get these guys inside of your locker room and, create a completely different culture, a culture that will be able to support Jalen Hurts 100%. But Jalen Hurts, it's hard for him to have a louder voice than Jason Kelce. It's hard for him to have a louder voice than Lane Johnson. So to me, I just think that you need to hit the reset button, maybe get a little bit younger and get guys in that can be able to, buy in a little bit to more to Jalen Hurts and also allow Jalen Hurts' voice to be a little bit louder inside of the locker room. But as far as Nick Sirianni is concerned, I don't feel like he needs to lose his job. Like, this is a coach that had the Philadelphia Eagles in a Super Bowl back in 2022 and only were a few plays away from actually winning it all. Like, you don't fire a coach like that. Like, you just find ways to try to help him be able to get over this hump. And it's not like the Philadelphia Eagles missed the playoffs. Even though they had a sorry performance there, they still were in the playoffs, and that's something that you have to take into consideration. And I really feel like maybe Lurie and Roseman will probably sit down with Nick Sirianni, have a conversation with him, ask him some questions like, I don't know, like, what do you feel like we need to do in order to get better? They'll probably give their point of view. He'll give his point of view, and they meet in the middle and try to find ways to make this team better. I understand that there are expectations for teams in the NFC East, probably because they play in bigger markets. I get it, right? The fan base, you lose 2 games, they trying to fire everybody. But I don't feel like Nick Sirianni needs to lose his job. I do, however, feel like he needs to get better at helping Jalen Hurts be able to, distribute the ball and also be able to use his legs. I feel like some of the things that made Jalen Hurts special in 2022 were kind of cut off in 2023. And I also feel like he was probably more hurt than he was letting on. And I think that played a huge role. Like, just watching Jalen Hurts in the game versus Tampa, I mean, when he tried to scramble, he did not look like the quarterback that we were accustomed to seeing when it comes to Jalen Hurts' running ability. So I think that there is something there, and I think it's probably something that needs to be investigated a little bit. But I don't feel like they need to get rid of Nick Sirianni. There hasn't been any reports about that. He could possibly lose his job, but I feel that would be a very huge mistake. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the divisional round of the playoffs, talk about some teams that are successful, some teams that have an opportunity to be in Vegas in a couple of weeks in the Super Bowl. Now, if you're watching this on a Saturday, it is Division Round Saturday, and there are a slate of games that's going to be on today. I'm going to go ahead and try to pull that up right now, but there are a lot of great football games that are going to be taking place this weekend. I think you're going to see a really good effort. I think that you're probably going to see some classic games. I don't feel like it's going to be like that classic divisional round like it was a couple of years ago, like, led off by that Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs game, with Tyreek Hill, with like 13 seconds left and, Patrick Mahomes just driving the ball down the field. I don't feel like it's going to be like that. But I think it's going to be some games that's going to keep everybody entertained and kind of close to the television. So you got to start with the game that's going to take place on Saturday at 4:30. The Houston Texans taking on the Baltimore Ravens. People are calling the divisional round or the playoffs the Baltimore Raven Invitational, meaning that the Baltimore Ravens are just leaps and bounds better than all the other teams. I mean, you got to give the Baltimore Ravens their respect. I mean, not only are they beating some of these teams, they're doing it in impressive fashion. Like you look at the San Francisco 49ers, they were red hot, but they went up against the Baltimore Ravens and the Ravens embarrassed them in Santa Clara. I mean, in their home stadium. The Baltimore Ravens had to go across 2 time zones and they slapped around the San Francisco 49ers, made them look like they shouldn't even be on the same field with them. But now they go up against a Houston Texans team, a team that's basically playing with house money, a team that is ahead of schedule. Nobody expected for the Houston Texans to be in this position that they are right now. They probably felt they were going to be a little bit better than they were last season. But not only did they win the division, but they won a playoff game. And it wasn't even close. C.J. Stroud had 3 touchdowns in the game, and they just absolutely dismantled the Cleveland Browns, the number 1 defense in all of football. But this is a huge task for rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud, who will be Offensive Player of the Year, or Offensive Rookie of the Year, rather. I mean, honestly, you cannot make an argument that he should be Offensive Player of the Year. But C.J. Stroud has this team believing that they can go all the way. When you have a quarterback that is poised, when guys look at it and it don't seem like he's rattled by any situation. Like I've seen C.J. Stroud on several occasions, and one thing I can say about him, like his demeanor never changes. He basically looks the same way, rather he's giving an interview, rather he's out there throwing a football. He always seems to be level-headed and cool, no matter what the situation is. Like, rookies don't supposed to look like he looks right now, and it just seems like he's been in the league forever. But this is a game, to me, this is a game that I look at as a measuring stick. Like, how far along are you? How good will you look in this game, right? Will the Baltimore Ravens just go out there and just dismantle you, or will you make it interesting? Because we know that C.J. Stroud has some talented players. He has Nico Collins out there. He's out there balling out. They got Devin Singletary out there. You got Damian Pierce out there. You got John Mechie out there. You got all these different talented offensive players. They got a really good offensive line led by Laramie Tunsil, the star left tackle. On defense, Will Anderson, he's out there. Like the young defense, you got Derek Stingley out there. So this is a young football team, and once again, they're playing with house money. Like nobody expected for them to be as good as they are. And they go into this divisional round playing loose. If they go out there and lose, everybody's going to say, well, man, great effort by the Houston Texans. If they go out there and knock off the Baltimore Ravens, like everybody's going to be like, man, this is the greatest upset or underdog story I've ever seen in my entire life. Like from worst to first, like this would be huge. So you can't get more loose than the Houston Texans. All of the pressure in the world is on the Baltimore Ravens. Because you got to look at Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, a star. Lamar Jackson is a guy who, man, everybody is looking at right now. He's taking steps forward. We know what he can do with his legs, but he is really making a strong campaign that he can be and is a pocket passer. So he's doing all these amazing things. He's the front runner for the MVP. He's making teams look silly. He got a bunch of talented guys out there. You lose Mark Andrews earlier in the season, and Isaiah Likely, the second-year guy out of Coastal Carolina, just picks up the slack. Then you got Zay Flowers out there, Odell Beckham Jr. You got Rashad Bateman. You got Gus Edwards running the football. Man, it is unbelievable what this team actually has. You got Jadeveon Clowney playing his best football ever, probably in his entire career. You got a great secondary with Marlon Humphreys. You got Marcus Williams out there, the ball hawk. So many different guys that you have on your team. Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith. This is a team that is extremely dangerous, man, and this game could get ugly. I understand what the Houston Texans possess. I understand what they did last week at home versus Cleveland, but this is a completely different beast going up against the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to really find out who C.J. Stroud is, and we're going to really find out who the Houston Texans are in this game on Saturday against the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to win this football game. I feel like they're on a mission. I feel like Lamar Jackson is trying to solidify himself as one of the best modern-day quarterbacks in all of football, and it starts with winning a game at the bank. I got the Baltimore Ravens winning this game, but I think it's going to be a nice outing and a nice effort by the Houston Texans. And then you have the primetime game, which is the 49ers taking on the Green Bay Packers. Now, I mentioned the Green Bay Packers earlier in the podcast, and I talked a little bit about them destroying the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I'm not a Dallas Cowboy fan. They get absolutely no sympathy from me, but you have to be impressed with Jordan Love. Jordan Love has a bunch of pressure. He has a huge chip on his shoulder. You come out, this is your first year as a starter, you're replacing a legend in Aaron Rodgers, and honestly, you even have the legend of Brad Favre that you have to carry with you as well, because the Green Bay Packer fan base are used to top-notch quarterback play and have over the last 30 years. There's not many teams that get one great quarterback and then they replace him with another great quarterback. So you have huge pressure on you. And he goes out there and does whatever he wanted offensively against a really good Dallas Cowboy team at home. So this is a young football team. You got young talent. You got Jaden Reed out there. He really came on when Christian Watson went down for a couple weeks. You got Christian Watson back in the lineup. He's starting to slowly get acclimated to the offense again. He's dealing with those injuries. You got Romeo Doubs, who has been really, really formidable. And also you got Luke Musgraves, who has come back off IR. And you had Kraft, the other tight end, who picked up the slack when he was there. So this is a team that has a lot of talent offensively and can be really good for another 4 or 5 years here. And then you add in Aaron Jones, who was running in between the tackles, and he is the Dallas Cowboy killer because every time he plays the Dallas Cowboys, he put on. Now, I know he's from the state of Texas. He's from El Paso, if I'm not mistaken, but he really puts on for his home state fans, I can tell you that. But this is a tall task. You're not playing the Dallas Cowboys. You're playing the San Francisco 49ers, and you're playing Kyle Shanahan, one of the best offensive minds in football. Now, Brock Purdy, people have their reservations and their thoughts about him. Is he a quarterback, game manager? Is he a legit quarterback? Is he just a guy that just kind of throws 5-yard passes and George Kittle turns those 5 yards into 30 yards, or Chris McCaffrey throw the ball to him for 2 yards and he turns 2 yards into 62 yards? Look, regardless, you have to give credit to Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy because Kyle Shanahan is calling the plays and Brock Purdy is out there executing. So it's a very good combination there. They have a really good defense with Greenlaw and Warner. They got some talented guys out there, Ward out there in the secondary. You got Bosa. You got Chase Young. You got Randy Gregory. Just an embarrassment of riches, man. And I think that the 49ers are focused. And I think that Kyle Shanahan, he wants to get this monkey off his back. winning a bunch of games, but can't win the big one. And I think the San Francisco 49ers, I think they're going to be focused going into this game. They got the first round bye. They should be well rested. Green Bay, honestly, should be well rested after that beatdown they put on Dallas. But this should be an exciting game. You have really good offensive-minded guys and coaches in Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur. I'm looking forward to this football game, seeing these guys kind of have a little bit of a chess match to see can they get their teams going forward. Well, that was Divisional Round Saturday. On the next edition, we're going to be talking about Divisional Round Sunday. We're going to be talking about some of those games. That'll take place on Sunday, so make sure that you come back to the Gumbo Pot Sports channel, be able to check out Divisional Round Sunday. We'll break those games down. But thank you so much for checking out the Gumbo Pot Sports Podcast. Once again, my name is TJAY Jones. Please subscribe to the channel, youtube.com, search Gumbo Pot Sports Podcast. Also, you can check it out on Facebook, facebook.com, search Gumbo Pot Sports Podcast. Check out the website, gumbopotsports.com, and you can follow me on X at TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, I'll see you down the road.